I think you can't truly have an adventure without struggle. It's not an adventure. This is a trip.
The story of Peak 7 began with Ryan at his first job, and he had this outdoor experience he developed when he was younger, and he would take his fellow employees out on rafting trips and hiking trips, and while he was outside in these adventures, he would see trash, needles, and kids really abusing Mother Nature and the beautiful rivers that are right in their backyards, and he wanted to change this. In 2006, Ryan created Peak 7 into a 501c, which is a nonprofit. And with no formal business background, he really wasn't running the company properly. And over the course of the next 2 years, in 2008, his entire staff quit. And this was a big wake-up call for Ryan. And later that year, he met Lynn, who had this management skill and background.
So she asked Ryan, hey, do you have any spots for me, or do you have any admin workers? I would love to be helpful. And at the time, he didn't have space for her, so she started volunteering, helping him become more logistically minded.
The great thing about Ryan is his drive, which has gotten them to overcome so many obstacles in the past, which makes Lynn, the strategic thinker of the office, such a great balance to our friend Ryan, because she is able to get things moving and get things in a concrete plan.
Listening to Lynn and Ryan and just their core values and how those values are seen in the organization is that of commitment and responsibility, and one of that being to their faith, and then also just through their everyday words and actions, and having your yes be yes and your no be no, and being confident in that. So that was really cool.
We asked them what they look for in some of their employees, and they spoke of how they want hard skills and soft skills. Lynn described it as the masterpiece, and these relate to the people have the skills to go out into the outdoors and adventure and climb mountains and river raft and do all that sort of stuff, and then they also have those interpersonal skills, and they look for those so that they can then relate to the children that they have.
They looked for people that were really willing, capable, and motivated with their mission. And why this was so interesting is because every employee on average stayed about 2 to 3 years. So these seasonal employees would come and go, but Ryan and Lynn would have to constantly be working with new people, finding those that are willing and capable to join the mission and stay true.
We emailed them back and asked them what their 5 strengths were, both Ryan and Lynn, and they covered things Lynn was contextual, strategic, disciplined, and relational, and then Ryan was a wooer. He was input, connectedness, and an includer and an activator. And I think this kind of then relates back to how they were looking for that kind of dual personality person to work at Peak 7. They're looking for that person to have those soft skills and those hard skills, kind of what is shown with Ryan and what is with Lynn. And that's kind of how, from the top down, their company works.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's for sure it's a challenge. I know you can do it, and I know you can do it. It's just a matter of deciding that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do it. DJ, there's things in life that are really hard, and it's those things that are usually worth the most in the end.
Yeah.
So we knew going in that Peak 7 was a religious-based nonprofit. And one of the things I think that we found was most interesting was just the idea that they push an agenda of love for the kids and not necessarily one of any theology or anything like that. On the trips, it was really cool. They did these spotlight moments where they kind of broke down the barriers between the leaders and the kids. And they talked about just kind of their stories and their testimonies of faith. And that was a really cool opportunity for the kids to just kind of have moments of vulnerability, and just to see that in their leaders and how their leaders work through their own personal challenges and stuff.
One thing that he likes to talk about is challenging the body and encouraging the spirit. This flows with his whole idea of growth.
But it was really kind of a challenge by choice situation. I feel like they would make sure that the kids arrived to the camp. But then they had the choice to try to summit the next day.
They help, but they do not enable. They're gonna push you, but they're not going to give you, put out your sleeping bag for you and put a little nice chocolate on the end for you before you go to bed. No, they're not gonna do anything like that. They're gonna make sure that you're putting in the work so you're growing, so that you feel a sense of accomplishment and growth in yourself by the time you leave a Peak 7 trip.